All right. Hello, everyone. This is the Black Eel podcast. This is actually episode two. Your hosts here are Scott and Mike on the other side of me. So, what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to be starting off with Star Wars, talking about the new stuff. We'll be moving on to DC and any changes that have happened, and also the same thing with Marvel. DC will be also talking about who we think should be the new leader of the Justice League. And in Marvel, we talk about our 7 members that we'd like to see as the members of the Avengers. Um, so let's get right into it and talk about Star Wars. So first off is the Bad Batch. So there were 2 episodes that aired since the last time we had our podcast, which were episodes 4 and 5. These were two, how do I want to put it? Filler episodes, I guess the best way to put it, which is very disappointing because the first 3 episodes were so good. And by no means were these filler episodes bad. It was just more the fact that they really didn't push the plot forward, in my opinion, or at least not significantly so. Because the first one pushed the plot a little bit, I guess you could say. It kind of gave us like the hint. So for those of you who don't know, spoilers ahead. We have the fourth episode was the racing episode,
Hmm.
which had with Sid having a robot race for her, which was very similar to pod racing, but it looked like a little more advanced, obviously.
More deadly.
Um, yes, definitely more deadly. They were allowed to use more force than what the pod races were supposed to be allowed to use in the first episode, if I remember correctly. Because it wasn't
Mhm.
frowned upon to actually damage these racers
Well,
because
yeah.
you actually saw it, where the other ones it was kind of you didn't actually see it. We saw it as the audience, but like their audience didn't actually see it.
Well, I mean, they had bots following you in the first in episode one. They were like cameras following them, but I think it was li- you were allowed to use force, but it was frowned upon, like you said. And then obviously you had the Tusken Raiders that um, were showing up and attacking. So
Yeah, in this one it was definitely much more pronounced and definitely much more. I think it was much more encouraged, in
yeah,
my opinion.
the other one was just more racing, where like I don't remember there actually being weapons on the vehicles, but they were
No,
they
I don't
were
think so. But
they
they
were
could do.
ramming each other and bumping them out of the way, which would then lead to them crashing, and that would be the violence. But otherwise, obviously in this one, your life was literally on the line.
Correct. And so the robot obviously the robot does well until their racer basically explodes, and then they
Until
try
they
to
get teamed,
rebuild
it
them.
suddenly gets teamed up on. Then it can't
Correct.
then it can't handle the extra algorithm.
Exactly. And then what happens is they then try to rebuild them. It explodes again by accident. And then
Got into a car crash.
yeah, some things happen. Raceways aren't safe.
Nope.
And then Tech takes over, and Tech actually wins the race. And they save Sid. And the big piece in this one that I thought was the most important, we talked about it earlier, was the sheer fact that we really get to see Sid's past a little bit, which we kind of had an idea of what it was, but I don't think we've actually seen too many people she's worked with um, other than this season. Last season, I don't think we did. Did we? If we
Mm.
did, it wasn't as big as
It
this.
was more like clients coming in and collecting the
Yeah,
rewards.
it wasn't like people she actually actively worked with.
Yeah, it wasn't like this
Not
season
to our
where
knowledge, or at least,
we have 2 people.
yeah, I would say like it definitely not something we thought of in the first season at least.
Hmm.
This time it's like very clearly they worked with her.
Hmm.
And he made it clear to the Bad Batch, basically stating that watch your back. Sid doesn't loyalty doesn't go both ways with Sid,
Hmm.
which I would imagine it's supposed to be a plot point in the sense of to show that she's most likely going to sell them out, or has the potential to sell them out, and maybe doesn't. We kind of see that, but there's got to be something towards that. But in the next episode, which was episode 5, it was the treasure hunt, which was kind of like Indiana Jones meets Star Wars.
Yep.
I didn't. I wasn't a huge fan of it because it was another filler episode, and it really didn't push anything forward. It kind of just had them go with Sid's friend on a treasure hunt, and then they didn't get anything.
Yeah. I Yeah, I agree. I think episode 4 and 5 were, like you said, obviously filler episodes. I enjoyed episode 4. I liked it a lot. It was a
Hmm.
it pushed the plot forward just a little bit, not too much, but I very much enjoyed it. I was entertained through it. Episode 5, I was kind of like, I really wasn't a fan of it. I was that one felt more like a filler episode, and it was. I understand the whole, they've got 16 episodes this season. You can't always push the plot forward, but I wasn't entertained in this one. I was like, all right, can this episode end? I felt bad about the droid at the end. I was sad.
Well, they kind of just they got rid of him to get rid of him. Like it didn't seem like it also wasn't sad either. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes when we see like the droids get like destroyed and stuff, we actually feel bad.
Mhm.
And maybe it's because we just met them,
Yeah,
but it was just kind of like, oh, it was there, and then it kind of just stayed there and just got blown up.
I was more along the lines of like, are they even going to go look for him and try to see if they can find him? But nope, they just
No,
bye.
no, they just no. I mean, it's destroyed, done. And then the idea that we're gonna have another treasure hunt episode too,
Mm.
supposedly in the next one, and I say it that way because that doesn't mean it's gonna happen. Like we're gonna actually see it.
Oh,
They
how
might,
the episode ended.
yeah,
I don't
like
think
they're
they're
gonna
going to
go
do that.
hunting. No, but there's the potential of seeing it,
It's a
or the
potential, but
ending of.
I don't think they're going to do two of the same thing, basically 2 episodes in a row.
I hope not, for obvious reasons. But yeah, that was the big thing. I was a little disappointed with the Bad Batch, like we talked about, where I think if episode 5 was different, like, or the topic was different, I feel like episode 4 I wouldn't have been as mad about,
Mm.
and episode 5 kind of pushed it forward. But I think with the two of them combined, I just didn't like either of them because of that. I definitely like episode 4 more than 5, for sure. But I felt like 4 pushed the plot enough in my mind of like Sid's character
Hmm.
and then didn't go anywhere else. You know what I'm saying? Where and then this next one with the treasure hunt, we don't see anything new about the characters. We already know Omega is intelligent. We already, you know what I mean? So there was nothing new that we were really getting pushed for, except for the fact that like there's robots in mountains.
Yes, that. And I thought it was weird how I know Hunter this season is very protective, but I thought it was weird just how unwilling he was, how he unwilling he is this season. Like I know, like I said, I know he's trying to be protective and look out for the group and make sure they survive and don't do anything dangerous, but it's like he just doesn't want to do anything. And it's like, wow, I don't remember him being this Debbie Downer in season 1.
I think it was more the fact that he and I could be wrong on this, but I think, I mean, they hinted obviously in like season 1 where he was more wanting to be with Omega and protecting her,
Hmm.
obviously. And then in this one, it seems like he's kind of overcompensating
Hmm.
to the point where he doesn't want to do anything that could alert the Empire,
Yeah.
which is basically anything.
Hmm. Speaking of alerting the Empire, I just think it's hilarious how Tech joins the team, or the racing crew, and he wins it and gets a huge spotlight. And as soon as that happened, I'm like, all right, the Empire's going to hear about this. They're going to know where they are now. Like,
Well, I feel like Sid wouldn't have had them go there if she thought the Empire was going to find out about it. Because and I don't mean for their safety, I mean for her money purposes. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like she wouldn't have had them go there, but also it wasn't the whole team either, so it's a weird
well, yeah.
issue.
I mean, at the end of the day, Sid is about the money. So if it
Mm.
involves going back to the plot of, loyalty doesn't go both ways with her. If the Empire shows up, as long as she gets her money or whatever, clears her debt, it doesn't really matter to her.
Yes, but I also think too that she'd be worried that she'd get captured as an accomplice or some sort. So I feel like she wouldn't want, like I'm thinking just for her own intents and purposes,
Yeah, no,
she'd be worried about herself. So therefore, she wouldn't want to risk them being in the spotlight in any sort of capacity
hmm
for the fact of she could get arrested too
no, yeah,
just by knowing who they are. And now she could lie and try to get out of it, but realistically, we both know, and I can't imagine her being dumb enough to think that she can out talk the Empire.
that's true. Yeah,
I mean, she comes off as intelligent enough to know the workings of the underworld of Star Wars
Mhm.
that I can't imagine her not knowing that she can't talk her way out of the Empire.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I feel like she wouldn't want to risk that. So I feel like that's why she had them go, because she knew it was like nothing crazy was going to happen, or nothing so obviously Empire related would have happened. Not to say it couldn't, because we both know that that easily could have happened. But I feel like there was a less of a chance than we thought of.
Well, don't forget I don't remember what episode it was at this point, but don't forget she just sent them to get Count Dooku's treasure swarming with Empire. So she's not
That is
willing to take
true.
that chance.
She also wasn't there.
Yes, that is the big difference, is that she was not around.
And the big thing too is we now know the Empire still thinks that they're dead.
Yes.
So that's another factor too, that they wouldn't even be looking for them either.
Hmm. This is
So
true.
that's a big thing.
That's true.
But yeah, I'm just hoping, because I'm obviously, when the next time we do this podcast, there's going to be 2 new episodes that come out. I just hope that they do a decent job with it, like move it forward a little bit.
Mhm.
I will not be happy if they do another 2 filler episodes.
I mean, I'm going to be honest. I'm expecting filler episodes. It's just whether they're entertaining or not. As long as I'm entertained by it. Like I said, episode 4, I was entertained. I enjoyed it. Episode 5, I was just like, all right, this is, eh.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm still looking forward to it. I'm obviously still going to watch it, but I was just a little disappointed.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the big topic, the Mandalorian. So big change that we found out was it's not going to be happening in February like we thought. It's literally March 1st, which I find hilarious. It's literally just one day after the month, which is a little irritating for me anyway. But I'm assuming it has to do with just the fact the way the Wednesday falls.
And you know what happened? They saw your video. They said, "Oh, this kid thinks it's going to be February. We're going to push it back one day, make it March."
Well, actually, no, they had it the week before, and they said, "No, let's push it a week.
Yep.
Just push it a week. Nobody will notice, but it'll be just enough to mess people up." But so I rewatched the trailer, and so there's a lot of Mandalorians.
Yep.
But I don't know. Like, I was watching it, and I watched it a few times, but I only watched it once before we started filming. And I know there was a whole bunch of different like armors and like uniforms and stuff that they had, like their armors and stuff. And I know it was based on different factions, but none of them looked uniform anymore. So I don't know if they were like the religious ones, like the zealots more, or if they were more of the Mandalorian, like the bloodline Mandalorians. So it was really tough to tell because they're all in their armors. So it's not like you can actually tell. So I'm definitely curious to see what happens with that particular thing. But other than that, we really didn't see much of the Mandalorians doing stuff, really. Like, we saw them gathering and getting ready for a fight and stuff like that, but we never got to see who they were fighting against. Were they each other? Was it somebody else? None of that seemed to be clear.
Yeah.
I mean, what were your thoughts on that? Because, like, for me personally, for the Mandalorians themselves, I was the most not confused, but like unclear of what's going to happen now that they're on Mandalore.
Well, like you said, it's going to be faction wars, obviously. Like, they're setting up their different factions, and he's going to Mandalore to try to unite it, I think.
I don't think that's his goal, though. Like, I think he's gonna, when he gets there, he decides to do it because he sees his people kind of like getting like need to be like reunited and stuff like that. But I don't think him going there was his original plan.
So I think he wants to go back to Mandalore for the sole purpose of regaining his honor so he can get back into the guild. But he also knows that the importance of the Darksaber requires him to unite Mandalore. So I think that is going to be a factor for him trying to do this. I don't think I'm not necessarily saying that he wants to do it. I think he's going to do it because the Darksaber requires him to do it, and he knows the importance of it. Even in his own guild, they told him, this is an important sword. You have to do this. You know, this is now your destiny. Whether or not, like I said, whether or not he wants to do it or not is a completely different story. He just wants to get back into the guild to keep being a bounty hunter and keep, take care of baby Yoda. Um, but
Child.
the child, Grogu, not Guru.
I'm just gonna say the child. It's easier.
I'm gonna wait for you to screw that one up too.
I know. That's why I'm gonna say the child. But the big thing for that though is just I think they did a good job for the trailer in the sense of to show that there are a lot of Mandalorians still, but also not giving away anything really. I mean, they really didn't.
I'm
That was
glad
the
that
big.
they didn't, like you said, they didn't give anything away like a lot of these trailers love to do. They show the plot of the movie and like, okay, we know what's going on. So like 2 recent movie trailers that have come out, we're like, okay, eh. So,
No, and I
but
agree with you. I was gonna say the big thing too was just the sheer fact like we also didn't see the dark saber in the trailer either.
no. Although there are 2 theories going on that I saw, kind of jumping ahead. I'm seeing online that people are talking about one scene where it's possibly the dark saber, but it's not. It's just a theory. So
Oh, is that the one? Is that the one where it's like the four Jedi and you see like the door
yes,
being sliced open,
yes,
but it's unclear of what's causing it?
yeah.
You assume it's a lightsaber, but you don't know
hmm
exactly what it is.
There are 2 theories. It's obviously Order 66, another point of view from Order 66, or um, it is the Jedi Mandalorian war, and the Mandalorian wielding the dark saber is invading the Jedi temple to attack the Jedi. Um, I think that would be an insane twist. I'm leaning more towards Order 66 from another point of view again, but we'll find out in a few weeks.
Yeah, I think the big thing too is I was question because there's no way that's not a flashback, obviously.
Yeah,
Like
obviously.
so like the whole thing was I was trying to figure out whose flashback was it?
Mm.
Was it Mandalore? Was it the child's? Like, is he remembering more? No, but seriously, is he remembering more of what happened?
No,
Type of
I'm
thing.
laughing because you're calling him the child because you're afraid to say
Yep,
Grogu.
yep, 100%. And I'm not gonna be shamed by it. But you understand what I'm saying? Because if I remember correctly, when he remembered little bits of his past, we saw four Jedi in front of him.
Yes,
So that's why I was wondering if he's getting more of the visions of what happened in his past,
it's
like kind
possible.
of like
As he's
Matrix.
getting more connected to the Force, he could be remembering more of his past.
Yeah, but I mean, again, we're just speculating. We have no idea. We won't know until we see it, and that's the big thing.
Hmm
But I'm definitely looking forward to it, just for the sheer fact of we have an idea of we know the story basically is going to be about Mando going to Mandalore,
hmm
and then there's going to be a war, whether it's the Mandalorians versus somebody else or the Mandalorians versus each other, or a combination of the two. And the other big thing that they showed in the trailer, which I was pleased with, which shouldn't be all that shocking, is we get to see a Force user use the Force now.
Oh, yep.
He's gonna be much more comfortable using it,
hmm
which is why I keep thinking that he potentially might use the dark saber.
It's a possibility.
I mean, I'm not saying he's gonna keep it, but I have a feeling we're gonna see him wield something similar
hmm
in this season. I can't, based on him using the Force so easily now, I can't imagine him not, because right now that's the only lightsaber in the area that we're aware of. You know what I'm
He
saying?
might have kept the lightsaber that Luke gave him in Boba Fett. We don't know. We never saw it.
Absolutely correct, but you understand what I'm saying.
Hmm
Right now, far as we know, the only lightsaber that's in this area at this time is going to be the dark saber.
No, you're right.
So we're definitely going to be. I'm definitely interested in seeing that. Also, too, the guy who does the bounties, I can't think of his name now,
Yep.
but is it me or does it seem like every season his city gets more and more like updated?
Yeah.
Like now it looks like a full on like palace looking place now.
Him in the robes now.
Yes,
I'm like, what happened?
exactly. Like it seems like every season, like it's becoming more and more elaborate. Like it looks like it's now like this is our marble metal, our white metal that we like using for the aesthetic purposes. And I'm like, don't get me wrong, I do like the
Yeah.
idea of that, but it's like from my eyes, it looks like way too quick. Like they're growing at a very fast pace. But also time wise, we don't know
We
how
don't know
much
how
time
much
is
time has passed. I was about to say that. Yep.
correct. And that's the other thing too. That's but definitely looking forward to it. Definitely excited that we have a firm date now.
Mhm.
It's going to be March 1st, so there shouldn't be any issues now. But definitely just happy to finally see Mandalorian 3. We've been waiting for what feels like forever.
Yep. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm most excited. The thing I'm looking forward to most this year is Mando. So, been waiting the longest for it, and finally it's here. And then obviously we hyped up even more with the fact that it teased it during Boba Fett. So, it's definitely time. That's the one consistent show that we know that is always going to be good. So, looking forward to it. To go back a little bit, what you said, because I realized I never actually answered your question before, was about the armor with the Mandalorians. So, because Mandalore is broken and we don't really know what's been going on too much, I didn't really register too much about the different armor. So obviously the different factions have different groups, but I'm thinking maybe because Mandalore is so broken, they're just trying to get the armor and keeping the symbols on them. So your group has the symbol, and then once they get more power, then they'll start, as you're higher up and have more influence, then you'll get the matching armor. But if you're a low tier part of the faction, maybe you just uh, stick with the symbol, and like Mando does in the guild, as he does better, he gets a new piece of armor, a new piece of equipment to get him higher in the ranks.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was just more the fact that I just remember in Clone Wars,
Yep.
like it was very obvious who was who,
Yes.
or at
But
least
don't
we had a
forget
better
those were
idea.
higher ups.
Also true, but I also think too they weren't also at war like they are now because the idea is they supposedly, and again we won't know until we watch the series, but the idea is that they've been fighting the entire time.
Yes.
So I would imagine that their armor is just being blasted to bits, and they just have to fix it. And you're right, it's probably the least of their concern right now.
Hmm.
I mean, they'll have the identifying piece, so that way their comrades know who they are. But realistically, I agree with you. I think it's just so much war, so much brokenness that they're not. It's not a priority.
Yeah.
And we're just taking it. We're taking it that way, but it's also it's a weird thing. It could go either way.
Yeah. We're used to seeing it one way, so the fact that they have it slightly different is a little bit of a shock, and I'm sure
Yeah.
they'll explain in the show.
But also, years have gone by since that anyway.
Yes. It's
So, like,
been what, at least 20, 30 years
I think it's been. Well,
since
when was the
Clone
last
Wars.
time we saw it? Rebels?
What's
No,
that?
we didn't see them. When was the last time we saw Mandalore? Was it Rebels?
Yes, we did
It
see
was
him in
Rebels.
Rebels because they went to Satine's
Because that's where
family.
correct, and that's where we saw the Mandalorian blasting weapon,
Yeah. So,
which is kind of which is kind of what we see the aftermath of
hmm,
a little bit of when they pull the helmet out and it's just dust.
hmm.
But so that was probably
So it
my
hasn't.
guess would be it couldn't have been more than 15 years
Yeah, I'm gonna go with about 15 years because I.
because remember because Luke and Leia are already alive. They
Yep.
were already alive at that point when we saw Mandalorian the last time, which was Rebels. So yeah, I would say like 10 to 15 years maybe,
Yeah.
give or take. I mean, because like I said, we don't know how much time has truly gone by in the Mandalorian.
I'm gonna go with 20. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna actually go with like 25 because Rebels is between 3 and 4. I don't remember the exact time frame Rebels takes place, but we're gonna say, you know, so Luke and Leia are about 10 years old. Now you go into the events of 4, 5, and 6. That's however many years go by, and now this is what did they say? I think it was like five. Season 1 of Mando was 5 years after Episode 6. So
Yeah, yeah. It was like I think they mentioned like it was like five years since the Death Star blew or the fall of the Empire. Sorry, the
mhm.
fall of the Empire.
So
So
it's
yeah,
been at least 20 years.
All right, well, which is fine, but you understand what I'm saying. I mean,
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff that could be happening that we don't know anything about.
correct.
And then, far as I know, other than the Mandalorian being pushed to March 1st, everything else does still has the same time frame until it gets closer. So that's pretty much everything for Star Wars for right now. So let's move on to DC. So one of the big things for those comic book fans out there know that there is a new leader of the Justice League. So it was announced in Nightwing 100, issue 100, that he was. I don't remember if he officially accepted in issue 100, but he was at least offered it by Batman about taking over the Justice League. And he obviously eventually accepted. I just don't remember if it was the same issue he accepted or if it was a couple issues later. But he was offered it, and then he decided to go for it. But his stipulation was that he would only do it if Batman helped him. That was his only stipulation.
You need the bat.
Yeah. So here's my question. So what we decided to do was we both came up with who we thought would be a good leader of the Justice League. And who did you pick?
So I had a kind of a bit of a struggle trying to pick because when you think of Justice League, it's so wrapped in the core six members that it's tough to think of someone outside of it. But I brought it down to four based off of because I just recently finished watching Young Justice. So three of them came from watching over there. Three of them was Aqualad because in Young Justice he takes over the Justice League and he does a great job and he deals with a lot. He was I'd love to see those minor characters being brought up, and with Young Justice they did that. So Aqualad actually took over the mantle of Aquaman because Aquaman retired. He went back to being King of Atlantis, and Justice League needed an Aquaman, so they promoted Aqualad to Aquaman. The other
Hold on,
two,
before you continue, I just want to make sure I'm right. This Aqualad is the son of Black Manta, correct?
yes.
Okay, sorry, continue.
Um, and then the other two, also from Young Justice, in Young Justice world, Beast Boy leaves the Teen Titans and becomes leader of the Outcasts.
Hmm.
And he is a very influential figure in the Young Justice world, which I think is hilarious because although he's the goofy character and he's still very similar to the Teen Titans that we grew up with, he did a very good job. Took over the role of leader and did a great job with it. So I think it would be awesome to then see him mature even more to be able to take that next step and then lead the Justice League instead of the minor teams. Keep graduating, keep learning, and keep becoming a better leader overall. And the last one from Young Justice was Miss Martian, because
Okay.
in Young Justice she's one of the main characters, and although she leaves the team behind, she very early, she's still a very influential character, and she's still very supportive of the team. And whenever things get tough, aside from Aqualad, they always turn to Miss Martian for guidance as well. And um, I thought, again, just seeing these characters grow and become being the sidekicks and the lesser known characters be able to rise up and become leaders of the whole team, I thought was just I would think would be an awesome uh, story to tell.
Hmm.
And then the last one, which has nothing to do with the Young Justice, which is just always something that I always loved because he was always one of my favorites, was John Stewart Green Lantern.
Oh, that's a good one.
With his military background and just he's one of the most powerful lanterns, and they always have such high respect for him. it wouldn't take much to see him to become the leader. They've had Green Lanterns. I believe it was Hal Jordan. He was one of them. Has been a leader of the Justice League before. So John Stewart Green Lantern, aside from our the animated show when we were kids, I don't really think he gets much spotlight because most of the time it's Hal Jordan, or the other one. I'm blanking on his name.
Oh, is it? Yeah, I know who you're talking about though. You know what's funny though? For me personally, John Stewart was the first Green Lantern I knew about.
Yep. Yep.
It was because of the show, obviously, but
Yep.
it's just so funny because when you look at the comics, he is like, I don't want to say bottom rung because that's not the right way to put it, but he's definitely not top.
No.
Uh,
But it's funny
which is
because like you said, he's not the top Green Lantern, but every
he should.
single Green Lantern, whenever they, in any of the universes, the movies, the TV shows, the comics, whenever they talk about John Stewart Green Lantern, they talk such high praise of him. They say he's absolutely one of the best lanterns, and he's always just pushed on the side.
Mhm.
And out of the four that I listed, personally, I think John Stewart Green Lantern would be a great one to take the mantle. But if you're talking about story wise, for me, building that stuff up, I think the other three would have a better story to tell. Whereas John Stewart Green Lantern is just like I said, he's a born leader. He is so powerful and so looked up to that, like I think he would be a great leader.
No, I completely forgot about him. Like, meaning, like, when I was thinking about this, like, he didn't even come up because I'm like, I don't want anybody who was, like, one of the original founding members of the Justice League. And in my mind, he is.
Hmm.
So I'm like, I'm not thinking about him. I'm not thinking about him, right? And for me, I had three names, one of which by no means I think could actually lead it, but I thought it would be hilarious. So there were two magic users that I had in mind, and then one that I thought was like way too obvious, but also like not good at the same time. So I'll explain when I say it. So the joke one was Constantine. Now, hear me out on this one before you completely
He would
get it
not
out.
do it.
No, but you can't imagine that he wouldn't want to for a little bit just for that power, just to say he did. Come
Yeah,
on. It definitely would not be a long lasting time
he
as
wouldn't
leader.
want the
That's
responsibility.
no, he would be stuck up there. He wouldn't be able to do his whatever he wanted to.
Yep.
I agree with you, but he was one of the first ones that came to my head because I thought it'd be so funny. But then I was like, no, just for the sheer fact, like his relationships and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So there was a movie that he was in. It was an animated movie, and he's talking with somebody, and they go, "Oh shoot, my ex is here." And they go, "Oh, you dated Harley Quinn?" He goes, "No, I'm not crazy." And it turned out to be his date was his ex was King Shark,
Yep.
which I just found hilarious. So I think
You
he would
just see
definitely
King Shark in the background, give him a wink, and you're like, what?
exactly. Definitely, because myself included, I just assumed it was Harley Quinn.
Hmm.
But just seeing his dynamic would be cool, but realistically, it wouldn't work out, and I know that. And the other two names that I thought of was Zatanna,
Hmm. Okay. Yeah.
and
Thought
then
about
the
her.
other one, yeah, and the other one was Cyborg. Now, my issue with Cyborg is he is a Justice League member and has been for a while,
Hmm.
but like I always knew him more as a Teen Titan,
Yep.
even though he is now like a big member of the Justice League. It's a weird thing, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
But it makes sense for him to be the leader, but I do have my concerns of having a robot be the leader. But he isn't all robot. Like he still has his own personality and stuff like that.
Yeah. He could
So
be
it was definitely
manipulated though.
but my choice was Zatanna.
Hmm.
I just thought that she was charismatic enough. She has enough power to really be a powerhouse as a leader, even though that's not necessary. But I
Yeah.
feel like in this new wave, it might be better for her to be that powerhouse, but rely on the others to kind of help out
Hmm.
in the sense of that. And I think she's strategic enough to be able to figure out certain things, not to the level of Nightwing or Batman. I know that, but I think comparatively to the rest of the DC universe, she's definitely well above average.
Yes.
Because the other person I was thinking of, which is every time I kept thinking about this, I'm like, oh, Robin from Teen Titans. I'm like, no, he is
That's
the leader.
Nightwing.
I know. I'm like, it's Dick Grayson. He is the leader. Like, you can't pick him because it is the leader. But yeah, so I went with, like I said, Cyborg, Constantine, and Zatanna. Constantine was kicked out right away, but I was really bouncing back and forth between Cyborg and Zatanna. But I went with Zatanna because she's not really affiliated with the Justice League as much.
Hmm.
But she is still a like not that she hasn't worked with them or been a part of them at certain points,
Hmm.
but like she is a sorceress where she's more of like the mystic and cosmic side, which
She's
I
a part
think
of the
is
Justice League, but she's more of like the just jumping ship like Marvel, where like Doctor Strange comes and helps the Avengers. She's more of that character. She's a part of the Justice League, but she, like you said, she's a sorceress, so she works more with the mystic arts and dealing with the. She's more like Constantine, you know. She deals
yes,
with the supernatural more than what's going on in the real world, unless they need her. Um,
correct. But I also think too that she's more likely than Constantine to help out in
mhm.
demonic issues.
Yeah,
Where Constantine is only going to help out in demon issues because he's either sold his soul or whatever. I think my favorite thing about Constantine is the sheer fact that he sold his soul to three demons, and then when they went to go pay the debt, the three of them killed each other, so that way he didn't have to sell his soul.
yep,
You know what I mean? Like that level of intelligence and just like sheer luck is on his side. Whereas Zatanna, I feel like, is much more level headed. Not that
yeah,
she isn't emotional or anything like that, but I mean, she's definitely much more level headed, and I think she'd care more about the team and what's going on in the world, and be a much better asset as a leader than the others. Where Cyborg, I think, would be way too, like, very much like we see in Injustice, where we see Cyborg being like, no, we need to be like Superman.
hmm,
Like, Superman is the person that is deciding that these are the laws and we are going to punish these criminals permanently. Where I feel like that's too much where it's going to go with Cyborg, and I could be wrong, but I mean that's where I feel in that one, and that's why I definitely went with Zatanna on this.
so I I had thought about Cyborg as well, but the only reason I didn't go with Cyborg is that because so he did lead the Justice League as well before. So that's the only reason I didn't go with him because of the fact that because he led it. I was like, you know what? I want to see someone that has never done it before. Um, Zatanna, like I said, I did think of her as well, but this is just because I nixed her out because I had just watched, like I said, I just finished watching Young Justice, so all of that storytelling is fresh in my head. And because in Young Justice, she takes the helm of Doctor Fate. So with her having the Doctor Fate helmet, yes, he's a Justice League member, but at the same time, he's all about order.
Mm,
So whether at the end of the day, if he thinks that what the Justice League is doing doesn't help contribute to order, then he's going to go against them. As long as the threat doesn't mess up the order and the Justice League can help restore order, he'll help them. But if it ends up being that, what they do just unbalances everything, he's going to go against them.
mm.
So that's the only reason
Right.
I nixed her is because I'm like I said, fresh in my head with Young Justice, her with Doctor Fate. Doctor Fate, I don't think would make a good Justice League leader.
No, agreed. 100% agreed. He definitely was not on my list whatsoever.
Hmm.
Uh, but I actually didn't know Cyborg ran the Justice League at one point.
I think it was more along the lines of probably most likely the core members were out of action and he filled in.
Wow.
That's my thought. I don't
Fair
remember.
enough.
I know that he's led it. I just don't remember the details.
Yeah. And then the only other thing that's happened in DC really has been the fact that a new trailer for Shazam came out, or they tweaked it a little bit,
That
and
was
they kind
one
of
of that was one of my trailers that
even
I
with the plot.
yeah pissed me off.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed because at least in the first couple of trailers, I mean I had an idea of what was happening. Like those two witches were going to be the ones that kind of be the enemies and stuff,
Hmm.
and the Shazam family was going to fight them. The new trailer, for those of you who haven't seen it, I mean, you're going to find out anyway. So
Don't I
uh,
if you haven't seen the trailer, I recommend not watching it if you don't want to be
yeah, there
spoiled.
was way too many. There were way too many, in my opinion, spoilers that were just not needed.
Yeah.
It ruined it a little bit for me, big time.
Hmm.
In my opinion, I'm granted we have not seen the movie, but based on what I see, I think they gave away a huge plot point in the movie that I think was, in my opinion, again, we obviously haven't seen it because it hasn't come out yet, but to me seems like a big, huge plot point that should have been kept under wraps.
Mhm. Yep.
Which I was not pleased with, in my opinion, because I was like, because at first it was kind of like, it was still kind of vague in the beginning of the new trailer.
Mhm.
It was kind of like, oh, okay, so we kind of get to see what their power is and like what they're going to be doing. But then it went and it completely, I mean, gave it away, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So it was definitely disappointing.
Agreed.
But other than that, there's been no other news on stuff that, on the new DC movies or shows right now, anyway.
The only thing that I've heard is the fact that, is that they're insisting on keeping the Flash actor, in which I'm just like, just get rid of him.
I'm wondering if they're keeping them because they don't want to flat out get rid of them yet because the movie has not come out yet. I'm wondering if that's the big piece. Like, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time,
so I disagree with that. I disagree with that just because of the fact that they've already announced that Jason Momoa is no longer Aquaman.
Oh, true, and there's a second one coming out. You're right.
So,
Yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right.
okay,
Well,
actually, I
yeah,
can't say that. They haven't confirmed it, but it's highly implied.
that's fair. I wonder if they're not going to announce any of that stuff till after those movies.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they're really trying to just make some money off these movies, is my guess. I could be wrong, but I'm imagining they're just trying to get the money on these movies and really not wanting to state that they're getting rid of anybody yet until their movie is done. Would be my guess.
I hope
which
so.
Which would be a smart move on their part.
Yeah.
Because they want to actually make money, and but I think with all the bad press it's been getting, and all the stuff that they've canceled, and the ones that they haven't canceled, like Aquaman doesn't have any. I mean, the only thing was Amber Heard, but like the movie itself, I mean, she didn't have a big role in that movie supposedly from the get go anyway.
No, supposedly she only had 10 minutes worth of lines, which I think I had heard that they recast her.
I heard that. I heard multiple things. I heard that they were recasting her. I heard that they cut the 10 minutes out of her anyway. I mean, there's. I don't think we will find out until it happens.
We'll find out in the movie.
Yeah, and I think too we might actually get a hint of it in the trailer, whether they're going to show her face or not, because that's going to be the big key right there on whether they completely removed her. Like, I'm wondering if they're not going to show her in the first trailer on purpose to make people guess, is she actually in it? Is she replaced? That kind of thing. Then in the later trailers, they actually have either definite.
In the first teaser trailer that they showed last year, I think they showed her.
But was it a past thing, or was it from that movie?
No, I think it was from the movie. It was
from that movie?
I think they were showing.
It wasn't like a flashback or anything, right?
No, I don't think it was a flashback.
No, I was just curious because I think I remember, but it's been so long since I saw it that I don't think I remember it too much. But it very well could have been. But I think now because they've changed it, you know what I mean? Because they did announce that they changed it.
Yes.
Whether or not they cut her time significantly or whatever, they did admit that they changed it, but they didn't say how they changed it. That was the big thing.
Yeah.
Which I think was a big piece on that front. But yeah, other than that, DC is pretty much staying the same. Nothing's been pushed back. Or at least not been announced yet anyway. The only one that's 100% got a confirmed date right now is Shazam 2, which is March 17th, which I was looking forward to it, but now that I know what's happening, I don't know if I'm super excited.
I mean, I'm still going to be excited for it because I loved Shazam 1, so I'm still looking forward to it.
That is one of my favorite DC movies right now. And out of all of them, it was my favorite because in that universe. You know what I'm saying? Like, Suicide Squad, even though it's connected, I didn't quite consider it part of that universe.
Yeah.
Even though it is technically, or was technically. I definitely thought, like, Shazam was, like, that really, like, wholesome, like, ooh, I really like this one. You know what I'm saying? Aquaman wasn't bad. I'm not saying that. It's just, Shazam was just so different from all of them. And I think that's what made it so much better. It kind of gave me, like, a little bit of... like Ant-Man vibes, you know what I mean? Like that joking. Now, granted, it's because Billy's a kid, but I mean, like, it's the jokingness of it where I really did like.
Yeah, I know we've talked about this many, many times, but it's the top 3 movies that DC did in the DCEU was Shazam, Aquaman, and Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was Yes, the first Wonder Woman. And they had it great until the end, where they botched it.
Well, it was the CGI
It
for
wasn't
me.
even yeah, the CGI, but it wasn't. It was just the fact that they changed the characters. They changed their characters.
Oh,
Like Wonder Woman was okay with mankind being destructive, and Ares wanted peace.
yeah,
Ares is the god of war. He needs war to live, and you're gonna
agreed.
change that. And it's like, I know for non-comic book people, they all loved the movie. Everyone highly praised it, and but for someone who knows the character background, that is a significant change. So it's like,
Well, I think we can agree that it didn't you didn't get that feeling until the end.
yeah,
Like it wasn't like like we just assumed it was the way it was in the comics until the very end.
hmm
Which I do agree with you, but I think for me the biggest thing was just the way Ares looked.
the
Really
mustache,
ruined it a little bit for me.
the
Yeah,
mustache and the helmet.
so awful. But yeah, so that's everything in DC right now. Let's move on to Marvel. So no, Marvel announced their 2023 Avengers team, and their Avengers team consists of uh, Scarlet Witch, Black Panther. Now, Scarlet Witch is Wanda Maximoff. I'm saying it this way because other people have worn the mantles before, so I just want to make sure we're all clear. Black Panther, specifically T'Challa. We have Vision. Who's Vision? I know. We have Captain America as Sam Wilson's Captain America. Tony Stark's Iron Man. Thor. It's Thor Odin's son's Thor. And then we have Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel as the leader of this group of Avengers. And that's where they are right now. So this was a tough thing. So what we wanted to do, we wanted to pick our own team of Avengers, and so I figured we'd do the same amount as the people that they announced. So I did 7. Did you pick 7 as well?
Yes.
All right. I'm gonna go first this time because I I did pick some of the ones that are in this team because it's so tough.
It
Like
is.
realistically, really thinking about it, I had a really tough time. So what I went with was we have Wanda and Vision. I thought that'd be a nice group, obviously,
hmm
nice little pair. And then I have Storm, Aurora, and T'Challa's Black Panther. So we have 2 couples.
Okay. Okay.
Now, granted, in the comic books, they've I think they're divorced now. But have them have that weird like whichever one you want to go with, whether they're in the relationship or they've broken up and now they're on the team together. Either way, I think that dynamic would still work
hmm
because it adds a little bit of like friction to the whole thing. I definitely need to see Iron Man. Tony Stark's got to be in it. Um, sorry, that's 5, and then I wanted Wolverine, so that's 6. So what we have there is we have 2 mutants on the team.
hmm
We have 2 pairs of lovers or ex-lovers, and then who I really wanted to be in I said Tony Stark's in it, right? I already
Yep.
said Iron
Yep.
Man. I actually had Tony as the leader of my team, and then I had Captain Marvel because Carol Danvers is Captain Marvel. I wasn't a huge fan of having her. I went back and forth between her and Hulk, but I feel like it would make more sense for the team that I created that Carol's in it because it adds a little bit more of a dynamic. It adds another woman to the team, which could cause some friction because she is known to. I mean, just like most people, like even like when there's superpowered people around, they're gonna start fooling around, and so definitely seeing that, um, and just seeing that dynamic go in there too. But I don't want her to be the leader. I think Tony Stark as a leader would make more sense out of the team that I created. Um, because Wolverine will go against him, so like there's still going to be that friction that I like, but also like they in the grand scheme of things they'd work together,
hmm
and that's what I went with. So and like I said too, like we have powerhouses, like we have Carol Danvers and we have Wanda Maximoff,
And
Scarlet Witch.
and Storm.
Storm as well. You know, we have these massive powerhouses, but then we also have the tech ones, which are Vision, technically Black Panther, even though he doesn't make his own tech all the time. It's his sister most of the time. Not that he isn't tech savvy, but he's not as versatile in it as his sister. And then we have Tony Stark, obviously. And then the odd man out is that Wolverine. Now, Wolverine adds that level of oldness, I guess you'd say, but also experience.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, he adds like the military experience. One of the
Yeah.
big things I think many people forget about Logan is how many wars he's been in.
Mm-hmm.
He's been in wars since the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the very first war he was in, and he's been in every single one since.
Yeah.
In fact, there was one comic book rendition where he actually was in the same unit as Captain America in World War II.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I think it was World War II. I drew a blank for a second, but it was
Yes.
World War II. They were actually in the same team, like in the military. And then obviously Captain America got frozen, and Wolverine just didn't age. So when
Yeah.
they met up again, Logan was very surprised and confused when they had to fight each other. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting thing. But anyway, that's my team of 7. All right, let me see how yours goes.
It's funny because we have similar thoughts. So, so for me, I mean, honestly, it's just tough because I grew, growing up with all these characters on the big screen and knowing who the powerhouses are, you're always like, oh, I want these guys on the team and whatever. So I tried to sit down and think about it. For me, the two leaders for me is Tony Stark's Iron Man and Steve Rogers' Captain America. I feel like those two, just because of how I've grown up with them, those two are always going to be the leaders for me for the Avengers. So then from there, I kind of tried to add a little bit of more dynamic to it. So I put Quicksilver in there because I feel like you need a speedster because of my growing up with the Justice League. I always feel like a team needs some kind of speedster as well. So I feel like Quicksilver would be that. I would be able to add a good amount of element to it. I know that there are other speedsters, but Quicksilver is the more well-known one, so I stuck him in there. I put Storm in there because of how powerful she is. You have that massive amount of power, and a team, Avengers with the level of threats that they face, Storm would be able to help with that a lot. I put also I wanted a sneaky character in there, so I added Spider-Man. Now, I kind of went a different route with it. Instead of the regular Spider-Man, instead of Peter Parker, I put Miles Morales because of the invisibility. The thing too with Spider-Man is that, I wanted the invisibility factor for the sneakiness, but you could also change it. It doesn't have to be Miles Morales. You could put in Spider-Gwen to add another female to the group. But for me, I like the idea of the invisibility, and I liked the uniqueness of Miles Morales Spider-Man with the electricity and the invisibility, and he still is a Spider-Man. And now for the last two characters, I felt like I wanted 2 unknown, lesser-known characters as part of the team. Now I went for my first of the 2 last characters was Brawn. Brawn is a Hulk that, unlike Bruce Banner, he wanted the Hulk ability. So he willingly injected himself with the radiation to gain the power. As well for Brawn as well, he's not just all brawn. He's very intelligent. He is one of the smartest people on Earth in the Marvel Universe. So with the Hulk strength as well as the smarts, he could back up the team with his power and help think things through and plan things like Bruce Banner and Tony Stark. Tony Stark has someone else to keep him in check because if Tony just does whatever he wants, that doesn't always end well. So you have another smart person. I was thinking about adding Mr. Fantastic or Professor X, but like I said, I wanted someone that I wanted a lesser known character, so I added threw him in there. And then the last character I wanted was Blue Marvel. Blue
That's a good.
Marvel is a very powerful character. He gets his power from antimatter, and he can go toe to toe with the Hulk and other incredibly powerful characters. So,
He
um,
goes up against like big cosmic entities too, doesn't he?
yes. So, yeah, he could go toe to toe with like you said, powerful beings from space as well, and uh, that adds another factor that the team could hold off against. Um, so I tried to round up the team as much as possible to get different elements into it. Um, so I just, like I said, the two lesser known characters that we don't or that I never really heard too much about was Braun and Blue Marvel. So I felt like putting them in the Avengers could help elevate the characters and get more stories out of them. And then, like I said, you get those other five that are more well known that help round up the team with the sneakiness and the speed and the power and the smarts and just the two leaders. Just for me, they're icons for the Avengers, so I just have to have them in there. But um, yeah, that was my team.
Yeah, I actually like your team better. Just for the well, but no, seriously, all for the fact of like, I mean, personally, I 100% get your point on all of them, but I think I like the most was the fact that you put two, and I don't like saying it this way, but two no names,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is a huge factor, especially when creating a team where yeah, you obviously want people you know, but then you want people who people don't know, so that way you get to learn about new people.
Yeah,
Definitely like that better. I went with a completely different route. I went more with like relationships and stuff like that, where I don't think we've seen them all together. Like they've all been on the Avengers for sure. Like my team is all of them have been on the Avengers,
yeah.
but I don't think they've all been on the Avengers at the same time. Um, to my knowledge, anyway.
I mean, I
Um,
think some of them. I think with your team, like they were in on the team, like not everybody at the same time, but like some people, like Storm might have been with Wanda, but not Vision, kind of thing. Like,
Correct. No, agreed, agreed. No, no, exactly. That's more of what I was getting at, and that's why I went with them. But
mm,
no, I do like the fact that you picked two people who, because I didn't even think of like that. I like that concept. I went with just the people I knew, which, but at the same time, I definitely like your idea of like Braun and Blue Marvel, because Blue Marvel, there's a hint that he might be coming into the MCU sooner.
oh,
Um,
really?
so there was a guy talking about it, how he was really talking about the future of the MCU, and he said one of the names that keeps being brought up that I've been pushing has been um, has been Blue Marvel, and at the same time, I think it was the same guy who also said that the first two X-Men he wants would be Bishop and Storm. But don't quote me on that. There might be two different people, but I do know that there was another Marvel official who was like talking about when they're talking about the X Men and stuff like that. Now that mutants are there, they're like the guy was like, "We're definitely not going to have a team of mutants right away. We're
Hmm.
going to introduce them slowly but surely."
Yeah,
And the two names that he brought up were Bishop and Storm. And Bishop, I was the most surprised about because how much do you remember of Bishop?
not too much.
All right. Well, anyway, he's a mutant, but he's known more for being in the future. So he's supposed to be like not so much like Cable, but like think of that time frame in the sense
Hmm.
of like he's in the present, like but his past. You know what I'm
He's
saying? Like,
yeah, he's trapped in the present.
correct. So, so that's definitely an interesting one to see that they'd want him first.
Hmm.
You know, adding in the time travel thing. But depending on how they do it, they'll do a great job. I'm just stating that that Storm definitely agree with should be one of the first ones. Bishop wasn't on my list.
Mm.
Bishop wasn't on my first list. I can tell you that right now.
It
There
wasn't
were
on your
others.
radar.
No, no. Storm, 100%.
Hmm.
Him, I didn't even think of him. But yeah, and then Marvel. There's been some news, and in fact, you were the one that told me about it, which I'm a little sad about.
Oh,
Is the fact that yeah, I like how you were stunned for a second.
well, it just
It,
kind of came out of nowhere.
I know I'm going on a tangent, and I love it. It's what if? What if season two has been pushed back to 2024?
Yep, I'm
Um,
very upset about that.
Yeah, I'm a little sad, but I'm guessing they just want to spread stuff out. They said it was the way your text said it had to do with budgets, which kind of confused me a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know about
I'm
that.
guessing they just got too much stuff going on, and they thought, let's push that back out
Yeah,
of anything. It's not the most important for the MCU right now,
yeah.
which I get. But it was still very disappointing. So I'm definitely sad by that.
I'm
But it's
wondering
what
how this will affect. I
Loki.
mean, I don't know. What was that?
How is it going to affect Loki?
No, 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 no. I was wondering how it's going to affect. I mean, I know it's going to be separate entities, but I'm wondering if this is going to have an impact on Marvel Zombies coming out. Um,
Well, it's funny you say that. So that wasn't scheduled to come out until 2024, I believe.
yes,
So I mean, they still could have it in 2024, but with everything else being pushed back, I agree with you. I would imagine that there's no way they're not going to have it pushed back, but it depends. I think that one, because it's going to be animated, and I'm guessing, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to impact the MCU. So I think them adding it in anywhere isn't going to be the end of the world. You know what I'm saying? Like
I can't disagree. I have to disagree with you because we now know that everything that they do is connected to the MCU. So,
in some sort of capacity, yes, but I don't think it's going to be directly related.
yeah, no, it's not going to have a very large impact like What If could.
Correct. And what if actually did have a decent impact because we saw a similar character, maybe not the exact character, but a similar character from the show. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
two of them,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
two in the same movie,
Yep.
which was interesting. But yeah, definitely disappointed in that. But to my knowledge, nothing else is being pushed back. The big thing, obviously, right now is even though Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur is next, the big thing, the big thing right now is Ant-Man 3,
Yep.
which we're definitely going to talk more in the next podcast episode in more detail. But right now, there's nothing really new that I've learned right now. And then after that, the following podcast episode, we will talk in detail about the movie, the ending credit scenes, or if there's more than one, if there's any at all, because there's the possibility of them not having any. Very slim,
Possible.
but it is possible. The reason why I say that is because for Endgame they didn't have one, and I know this isn't the same level as Endgame, but it's like the big announcement of Kang being Kang.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to
Actually,
see
I
how.
did. Actually, I don't want to say it because it could be spoilers. Well,
Well, spoilers ahead. We've said it a million times. People
spoilers.
know.
Something that they talked about was that they're introducing Kang. There's going to be Kang as whatever. Um,
It's
but
more
I
like the Kang that's supposed to be the big bad.
Yes, it's going to be the big bad. But this, so supposedly the Ant-Man is going to have a teaser for Loki season 2,
Hmm.
which we figured it would happen anyways. But I guess I just today I just saw a confirmation post about it that it's supposed to.
Well, there was a rumor going around about in the Kang dynasty when the heroes have lost against Kang, the heroes that go around trying to find reinforcements in the multiverse were, and this is just speculation, none of this has been confirmed. It was Ant-Man, Loki, Wanda, Suri, and there was a fifth one, and it's going to bother me now. I don't think it was Spider-Man. It was somebody else. Um, it was a big name, and I can't think of it now. Anyway, it's not important because it's not confirmed, but there were like five names that they said that would be not necessarily the leaders of the Avengers, but like trying to get a new group of Avengers to stop Kang from
Hmm.
destroying the timeline, which was the big thing. And that was supposed to lead into Secret Wars, I think. But again, that was all speculation, and none of that's been confirmed.
It's
But
still years away, so yeah.
100%, exactly. So there's no big deal on the sense of like things being exact yet. And the other thing too is I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal if they expand like any of the phases, meaning like not so much like I'm talking about time wise. You know what I'm saying? Like spacing
Mm-hmm.
it out more. I don't think it would be detrimental because the first saga was really long. You know what I'm saying? Like time wise, like distance and time was a long time. So they originally they were going to try to speed this up and I think they're realizing it didn't work out, obviously, and
Yeah.
they're really trying to space it out. But I don't think it's going to be a bad thing. I think
No.
they're still going to be able to produce all the stuff they wanted to. I think the only thing that irritates me as a viewer is they said they were going to do it one way, and then they changed it, and now I have to wait for stuff that I
Yep.
didn't want to wait for.
Yep.
Like, I did not want to wait for Marvel Zombies. I did not want to wait for What If 2. I definitely did not want to wait for Loki Season 2. I was like, that should have been done already, in my opinion.
Yep.
But, like, that was, like, the big thing. Like, no, Ant-Man, I think, was around the same time I thought it was going to come out. I don't think they really changed it too much time-wise. From, or at least not drastically, like some of the others.
Yeah, no, they were talking about spring 23, I think, if I remember correctly. So, but for me, Ant-Man kind of came into the radar now, like
Yeah.
when it was announcing movies. For me, like I liked the first two Ant-Man, but they weren't like it wasn't like, oh, I can't wait for the third Ant-Man. It wasn't
Well,
until recent events that now I'm like, oh, I'm so hyped for Ant-Man.
I think you're absolutely right. I think we knew that there was going to be a third Ant-Man,
Hmm.
but I don't think we knew the magnitude of what it was going to entail. So
Yeah.
therefore, we were kind of just like it was going to be like a standalone type thing,
Hmm.
where this was supposed to really push the plot forward for the entire MCU of the
Yeah.
new saga. So that's going to be, I think, the big difference in this one, which I'm most looking forward to. And also, the rumor is Ant-Man might be the new leader of the Avengers for this saga.
So,
Again, this is all speculation.
so he's not getting killed off.
Well, here's the weird thing. It's one of those where
Yeah, he could
the
still
Ant
kill
Man
off an
we
Ant-Man.
know, or is
Yes.
yeah, it's a weird situation. So
Yep.
it's really tough to figure out, especially with all this stuff.
Hmm.
So that's pretty much it for Marvel right now, because nothing has been stated on the fact of like what's like nothing's been pushed back other than What If Season 2. Everything else is staying the same as of right now. I'm putting that in quotes because as of when we film this, this is where we are right now. It might change. I mean, it's going to change constantly. So we're going to keep giving updates as we know them.
Hmm.
And also when we start to find out more of like stuff that's being announced, like especially obviously towards the end of the year, there'll be more stuff that they're announcing for the next coming years. So we'll definitely wait to hear about that stuff. But for right now, that's everything for Marvel. So as we end with all of our podcasts, aka the two of them, um, we do like these. I've called them character spotlights. They're just characters that many people don't know about in our respective universes. So I do a Marvel one, and Mike does a DC one. Now, last time, Mike, you went first. Would you like it if I go first this time?
Go right ahead. No,
All right. So actually, my person is Magma. Do you know Magma?
sounds familiar, but I don't think so.
So she's a mutant. Shockingly.
Would have
So
never
she's a
guessed.
mutant. She was actually introduced in 1983, which I did not real. So I know of her, and I think the big thing for me was I didn't realize she was that old. I didn't realize she came out in the 80s. I thought she came out in the 90s, specifically because there was a big hype for her in the 90s, and it fizzled out fast. Um, so her actual name is, and I'm going to be pronouncing this wrong significantly, so be prepared.
Oh boy.
Uh, Amara Aquila, and I very much am most likely saying that wrong. So anyway, she was raised in the hidden city of Nova Roma, which is in the Amazon jungles of Brazil, and her biggest thing was her powers are. Well, take a guess on what her powers are, Mike.
Does it have anything to do with magma?
Yeah, pretty much. So she learned about her abilities. She has the ability to project bursts of heat and molten rock, which is magma. But the big thing that I didn't realize was she can actually create shifts in the tectonic plates beneath the Earth to cause the formation of volcanoes.
Oh.
So that way she can produce volcanic eruptions,
Hmm.
which puts her at a whole nother level than I originally thought she was able to do. So she's obviously a fire slash rock mutant, but she presents human, obviously. And what happened was she's been on multiple teams. Her first team, which I was surprised about, was not the X-Men like I thought. It was actually technically the New Mutants, which is a subset of the X-Men, but like she was specifically in the New Mutants. And later, did she joined Xavier's Institute as a staff member, and then she was one of the few people who actually survived M-Day with her powers intact.
Oh.
Which I was surprised. I didn't think many, if any, did. And then at one point, I wanted to add this in there because I thought this was funny from the comics. Was apparently she was trapped. She was later trapped in hell with the New Mutants, and how she got everyone free except for her. Well, technically herself too, was that she decided to trade a date with Mephisto. Which I find hilarious because he would go with a magma using mutant
That's
as
funny.
his date, which I find very funny. So the other reason why I put her in this was for the sheer fact that there was a big hype for her in the 90s and maybe even early 2000s, where they had her in X-Men Legends, the very first X-Men Legends game, which was on, I think it was in PlayStation 2. I think I have it in PlayStation 2. But anyway, so it was like it was very similar to. You ever played Ultimate Alliance?
Mm-hmm.
It was the first version of Ultimate Alliance. The difference being obviously it was only X-Men. So in this one, it takes place with Magma learning about her powers, and then she causes this huge eruption in New York, and the Brotherhood try to get her, and then the X-Men try to save her, and all this stuff, and then she joins the X-Men. And one of the big things in the game that bothered me more now than it did earlier, was that they compared her way too much to the Phoenix. Like her power output was like, oh my god, I've not seen power levels like this since the Phoenix, and it was very irritating because it was when she exploded with anger and stuff like that, but it was a one-off burst. Like she lost control of her power, but the power didn't take over her. If you understand what I mean. It wasn't like the Phoenix, so I didn't like that comparison later on in life. And the whole concept of the game was them stopping the Brotherhood of Mutants from destroying Earth, basically destroying all of humans, because they were going to keep the mutants alive. And that was the whole concept of it. And Magma was the main focal point of the story, and she was also a playable character, along with many other heavy hitters too, like Jubilee, who isn't mentioned all that much in a lot of like the X-Men games and games in general. Beast, you actually could play as Beast, which I thought was cool, and Emma Frost, the White Queen. So like all those combined being in it, and then obviously Magma. Magma was definitely a cool one. I just like the fact that her powers were very similar in game as like Iceman. So like she could burn her opponents, but like she had a rock slide ability. So like it was a magma, like she, you know how in the games Iceman can use like an ice slide and like move that way. Well, she creates like this magma slide, and she like magmas across the map and stuff like that.
Magmas across the
which
map.
Yes, and I just find that hilarious. But definitely an interesting character. She's somebody who I don't think has had a big like storyline. I think her biggest storyline, to my knowledge, was obviously when she first came out. The New Mutants in general, she was kind of a big name in the New Mutants. But like in the grand scheme of the Marvel comics, she really hasn't had much of a story, which is why I wanted to talk about her. But she is somebody who is known if you've like played the games and stuff like that, and if you've watched if you've read the comics and stuff like that. But yeah, she's definitely somebody who I really would love to see more of, just for the sheer fact that she's at the same level of, like, in my opinion, of like Storm and Iceman, where they can cause severe havoc to the Earth, but don't. You know what I'm saying? Like they like make sure that they keep their powers intact. I mean, she can create a literal volcano in the middle of New York City. Like, not
She's
many.
got a lot of power.
Yeah, exactly. So that's who I decided to pick on, and like I said, she was a big one. Also, just out of fun little things, her height is 5'6". Her weight is 24. Oh, I'm just doing it for shits and giggles at this point. Her eyes are brown, and her hair is blonde. So I was kind of surprised that her hair was blonde, because every time I've seen her, you really can't tell what her hair color is because of she's literally like covered.
She's on fire.
Yeah. So it's like, it's weird, and she also has like this magma armor that I think is cool, too. So yeah, definitely did like it.
You sound like a stalker.
Shut up. Yes. All right, well that's my person, and you get to talk about yours.
So, my character that I chose His name is Anthro. He has had one comic issue or one comic series, and I think it was 6 issues. And his other than that, his appearances have been very like guest appearances kind of in other comic series. He's not really a major player. His first comic came out in 1968, and he is known as the first boy of the DC universe, which means he is basically the first human being ever. His he was he was born from Neanderthals, and he is the first human being. So his superpowers is that he is a very good hunter and tracker. So he's not really anything super crazy. He's just he's basically known as just the first human being ever, and he started the timeline of humans. He's had appearances in Superman comics. He's had appearances with Booster Gold. He's had he comes in more play like in alternate timelines. But in his comic series, they talk about his birth and how he was born from the cave people, and that he's basically like they talk about how he had enhanced intelligence for the time period, and that he actually had encounters with a new god. It was Metron. Metron gave him life skills that he used to enhance the species, like he showed him how to make fire and all that other stuff. But like other appearances that he's come into was, like I said, he showed up in Booster Gold, where just showed up and he couldn't really communicate with people, and he's just like talking with his cave people language, and just it's nothing really special about him. He's the first human. He's a caveman.
Is he around now? Like, is he have long life?
So he's not a so with the whole so with like for example, because he's appeared in Booster Gold series. Booster Gold is a time traveler, so he's gone to the past, taken him by accident because Booster Gold doesn't know how to keep his hands off anything, and he just wants to be famous. So like he's gone into the past, taken Anthro, brought him to the present or whatever, and Anthro is just going along with his ways.
That's weird.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like it's a cool character, obviously, because it's somebody not well known, obviously, but I think it's just such a weird concept, in the sense of it's like, here's this guy, yeah, he's the first human. Does he have superpowers? No, he's a human. Like, he's a human.
Yeah, pretty much. That's why I picked it. I'm like, there's nothing really special about him. He's the first human. That was it. And
exactly.
So he's made other appearances. Like I said, he appeared in a Superman comic, which actually. So in that comic, he was known as the Immortal Man. So he could in that alternate universe, he had a long life.
Okay.
He was so in that comic series he was on the level with Vandal Savage, where he was a caveman. The meteorite came down, he interacted with the meteorite, gave him eternal life, and he became powerful that way. But for the most part, like that's just an alternate version of him. But for the most part, he's just
story.
Yeah. But his main story is that he's a human. He was the first human, and that was it.
That's kind of cool, to be honest with you. I think that because I was going to ask if he had any relations to Savage, but it makes sense that he only did in that one timeline.
Yeah.
But definitely interesting. I think that's kind of cool. But yeah, so one of the things is for the first episode we had a little bit of trouble getting onto Spotify. So we're hoping that issue has been fixed for this one. And we will still be airing on Anchor for sure. Hopefully we're going to be in Spotify 100% this time. And we will 100% be on YouTube as well. So for those of you who don't see it or can't hear it on Spotify, but you still want to watch it, you can actually have the video version on YouTube. And you can go, you can look up BlackEel Podcast, which will get you to our page, and you can watch it from there. Make sure you subscribe as well. And then also we will be, like I said, we're definitely on Anchor for sure, and it'll still be on Anchor. The only problem is I'm hoping for sure it will be on Spotify, but I do not have a guarantee on that. And then our next, so this one will be airing on January 31st, and then our next podcast will be coming out on February 15th. Which will be more focused on Marvel, specifically on what we think is going to happen in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. But for right now, that's pretty much it. You got anything else to say, Mike?
No, yeah, everything's covered.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for anybody who's been watching. We very much appreciate it. And we're looking forward to continuing this conversation in the future and hopefully many more episodes to come. Have a wonderful time, everybody. Goodbye.